Woo. All righty then. Let's get some announcements out of the way here. Please make sure to turn your phones to mute or do not disturb. Thank you very much. We do have a suggestion box, and we also take suggestions at the board. If you have a board member you want to talk to about something, let us know. Also, other vehicles, if you need to know those, we'll get those later. Next week is Sing and Share. Also next week, we have a little bitty community meeting. So for those of you who want to vote on our little bitty changes to the bylaws, just a couple of words here and there that don't really have too much difference, but enough to help us out for the next few years. So that's what we're going to be voting on next week, along with, is there anything else on that?
No, you got it.
Okay.
No, we're having this short committee meeting because we have to have a community bylaws vote 2 months after we announce one. So that's next week. And we also are having our Sing and Share, which will be a third time. We have it for the share. We have 2 kinds of share. We have a channeling from Spirit about the church through our member, longtime member, and a new member of our board, Barb With, who comes over from Madeline Island. And so she's a professional, long-time channel. And so she's bringing through our former pastor, the Rev, now requesting to be called Bill, and our ancestors all gather, and past members of our community that are on the other side gather. So it's a beautiful return to our roots, our metaphysical roots of having messages through the other side, which began for many, many of us. Well, no, not so many of us that are still here, but with Rev back in the 70s and before the 70s, 80s, when a lot of us came. So that's one part of the share. The other part of the share is us as a community, having an open mic to have short messages that we want to share with each other about aspects of our spiritual path. And we'll speak to a subject that we're inviting on next week. We haven't decided on one. If you have any ideas of something you would like to be sharing. Last month, I think we said it would be something that was about a spiritual awakening for ourselves. So just a short sharing time for us. And then we also do, it's Sing and Share. So we also do extra singing because Barb is a professional singer and songwriter for, I don't know, 30 plus years. And so she is now leading us. She's our song leader now. Whenever she's here, we get to sing more. And we're growing into having folders with songs that we're used to and that we can sing together. So it's a lot of beautiful growth. And then I'd love to call Denise up to speak just a little moment about the community gatherings that are happening.
Okay. Wasn't expecting this, but I knew I was going to talk about the Tea Group, which started many years ago, and it moved from venue to venue until finally COVID hit, and then it was defunct. So we are bringing it back. It's going to be tomorrow is the first meeting. It will be here in the lower level of the church. Everyone is welcome. It's a drop-in thing. It's not a commitment that you have to be there every time or anything like that. And you can join in when you're able. It will be at 10 o'clock. I'm not sure how long it will run. We're going to kind of leave that open. We are going to use Gaia as kind of our instrument of programming choice. And there's a million to choose from, so we have lots of choices. I am leaning towards a program that I have looked at, and I think a couple other people have peeked at on Gaia called, it's on channeling. And I thought it was very appropriate since we're now doing that for people to get a better, broader, deeper history of it and an understanding. So we may be starting with that. And we're open to lots of suggestions, and we have lots of fun discussions We do have a TV that we get to hook it up to rather than looking at a little iPad or just hearing the audio. Thank you, Cassandra, for bringing in the TV, and hopefully the Roku that Sue brought in will help connect all those technology pieces together for us tomorrow morning. They will be meeting the first and the third Mondays, not every Monday, the first and the third of every month at 10 o'clock. And the time is also open if people there go, I don't want to be here at 10 o'clock in the morning. Can we do this at 1 in the afternoon? We'll see how it goes. As far as community events, it was really cold this week, so I didn't get out much. There is a snowshoe hiking social 55 and over, so it's very gentle and very slow. And snowshoes are even optional. You can just walk in your boots and have poles just to make sure that you're balanced. But it's offered through Duluth Park and Recs, and they do a different venue. And it's also in the morning. It's on Tuesdays. I think it's at 10:30. The venue changes from time to time. I do have the information out in my car, so if anybody's interested, I can get you that. Friday nights, we've been doing a couple of different things. We do a trivia. Sue and I and Kathleen went, and it's at the Duluth Folk School, and it's a very nice, welcoming venue, and it's every Friday at 6 o'clock. And it's kind of fun because we laugh at ourselves because we don't know too much. But also Nancy Knutson, who is going to be joining our tea group, let me know that there is also another venue on Friday for people who like to dance or enjoy music. It's called Ecstatic Dance. And that's also on Friday, and it is also in Lincoln Park. I don't know the name of the building, but I have the address. It's very close to the folk school. And that's also on Friday night at 6:45. So there's lots of stuff. I have more information, but I don't want to do that all up here. We can do that at lunch.
Thanks, Denise. Thank you. All right, just a quick note that the Unity Book Discussion Group is on hiatus for now. We will update you if things change about that. So other than that, the trivia is a hoot because they play this music section and we look at each other and go, is that music? Oh, but we don't even know. Everyone else is singing the song lyrics and we're sitting there going, what is that? Who sang? You have to know what the name of the song and who sang it. And it's like, okay, no, we laugh hysterically. Anyway, so then the next thing on the agenda, which I'd like to do is I would like to ask if anyone has any prayer requests. Oh, for the earth, of course, yes.
I don't know if anybody knew her, but Sharon Woman.
Yes, Sharon Woman.
Last Sunday, I believe.
Yes.
This prayer is for her.
And if people aren't familiar with Sharon, you may be familiar with Austin Jarrow. Jarrow is her son that I went to school with. So yeah, it's so yeah.
Dear friend of mine, I never first met in 1971. I couldn't get my little she has breast cancer. She had the surgery. They caught it really early. She's starting treatment this next week. So she's way down near the
And Donna Ray. So prayers for Donna Ray for her continued treatment and positive moving forward. Awesome. Well, if somebody could bring forward the bowl. Oh, thank you, Kathleen. Our prayer bowl has names of people who we need to pray for and other things, other people, other world events that need to be prayed over. And we do pray over those during the course of the service, or we keep them in our thoughts. If you've not had a chance to put a note in there on somebody that you'd like to pray for, you can do so emotionally and non-physically so that you can, we can pray over those people as well, intentionally.
We're going to take a moment. We'll take a moment of silence for us to pray together now with the power of our group.
All right, at this time, I'd like to have Carolyn come up and introduce our speaker.
My speaker today is Gary Anderson. And kind of takes one to know one, because I've wanted him to be a speaker for many years. And had to wait till I was the one gets to talk to the speakers and choose them. And Gary's been on a spiritual path ever since I've known him, probably around 20 years. I don't know exactly. And he's when I first looked at the folder of speakers that have been here before, and I knew I was already thinking about Gary, the mantra that kept coming for me with him was how to run a campaign built on love. And because he has not only been a city councilor for us for a long time, but also he led the political organization that brought home a really successful vote for the marriage amendment in Northeast Minnesota. And when I once spoke to him about how he was raising the energy and the votes for his city councils, he talked about a big tent, that we all are in the big tent. And I just couldn't love that more. So, and also he's a longtime body worker and yogi and a yoga therapist. So he's a pleasure to introduce. Thank you, Gary, for being with us.
We're going to sing in the silence. Real quick, and then you can do our meditation. 74.
God is there. God is here. God is here. God is here. Let's close our, if you're comfortable, let your eyes be softly closed or just a soft gaze down toward the floor. Begin to notice your breath. Inviting all of who you are into this moment. Beginning by noticing the places where your body is touching the earth. Soles of your feet, your backside, your back body. Breathe into those places. Noticing how you are able in this moment to welcome support. Perhaps taking a moment and remembering a time when you had a hard time accepting support. Breathing that in. All of us is welcome here. Bring awareness now to the joints in your body, the ankles, the knees, the hips, the shoulders, the elbows, the hands. How flexible are you in your being this morning? Noticing thoughts of judgment, thoughts of gratitude, all of you is welcome here. Flexibility and stiffness. Bring awareness now to the belly, this place of intuitive knowing. I've got a gut feeling about this, yes? Where's your intuition guiding you this morning? Breathe into this place of knowing with gratitude for guidance, with awareness that we don't always trust our inner guides. And that's just a part of who we are. Take a nice breath in now to the heart center. If you like, even placing a hand gently over your heart or both hands. Listening to that quiet heartbeat of life, the drum of the earth. Breathing into this home of emotions and values. And for a moment, I'll invite you to take a glance, an internal glance at the back door of the heart. Just see what's there when you open that back body. Is there something trying to catch up with you? Or perhaps something that you just need to open that little back door and just let it go. Trust. Trust whatever you are being guided to. Bring awareness now to the shoulders. If you're like me, perhaps you like to bear a little bit too much responsibility. Maybe take a breath into those shoulders, squish the shoulders up toward the ears a little bit, breathing in. Open the mouth. Drop those shoulders, let it go. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale, scrunch the shoulders up. Exhale, drop them and let them go. And the last time. Taking responsibility often guides us into action. Too much responsibility might lead to stress, pain. For today, let's find that middle ground, that right space, that right sizedness. Bring awareness now to the throat center, center of communication, of voice. Reflecting for a moment on your voice and how you bring it into the world. Welcoming those moments when you need to be strong, courageous, and bold. And also welcoming those moments, sitting back into the silence, breathing in all that is. And next, let's bring our awareness right up to the crown of the head. Imagining opening there, light pouring down into us, light floating up through us. Here we are in all of our being. Open, responsible, communicative, grounded in values and emotions, full of knowing, flexible and able to be light on our feet, emotionally and physically as needed, and grounded here and now. Thank you and amen. When you're ready, feel free to open your eyes, stretch yourself out a little bit, move your body in any way that helps you feel more present, more here, more part of this community this morning. So I want to thank Carolyn for the invitation to be here. As she said, we've known each other in the community for a long time. And as I have many of you here, many others of you here as well. And hello to everybody who's with us online today. You know, it's been probably a month or so, maybe a little bit longer, that since Carolyn asked me to come here and speak. And I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? And, you know, I think many of you probably know that my spouse is Gary Bullhauer, who has spoken here many times. You know, and Gary's a professional theologian, and he's a PhD teacher, you know, and a high-level academic, and written all kinds of books. And you know, but we're Gary and Gary, you know, in Duluth. If you say that you know the Garys, they're going to, oh, wow, you know the Garys. But I have something to tell you about the two of us. I refer to Gary as ducks in a row, and me as ducks unlimited. So we have a bit of a different perspective on life and how we show up for life. But yet we were guided to each other and have been together now. We're in our 13th year. And as Carolyn alluded to, I was a major leader in the Minnesotans United for All Families campaign back in 2011, 12, and 13. And at that time is one of the moments in my life where spirit really, really guided me. And all of these different senses of our beings, you know, flexibility and grounding and knowing and communication and voice, all of that came into play when back in the day, some legislators in St. Paul decided that they were going to try to pass a ban on same-sex marriage in Minnesota. And at that point, 30 states in a row had voted into their constitutions bans on the ability for same-sex people to get married. So 30 states in a row. And what we did in Minnesota, and I was one of the leaders, but there were many other leaders and many people who just gave everything they had to that campaign. We voted no, right? Remember those orange yard signs that were everywhere? And it was an amazing, amazing journey. And as a person who has always had a sense of myself as a spiritual being, it was during that time where I really knew that I could do something. You know, I could do something, I could influence my community, and that I had community around me to support me to step up and be a leader. One of Gary's good friends is the theologian, a Quaker theologian named Parker Palmer. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Parker. He and Gary both are from Wisconsin, and they have met and worked together and sat together many, many times. And Parker wrote a book called Healing the Heart of Democracy. And one line from there that I have held on to for all of these years, and Parker said, two things that people who want to be active in the political realm need to have an equal measure, and of course I'm paraphrasing here, two things that people who want to be active in the political realm need to have an equal measure are humility and chutzpah. Right? You have to be able to know, I can't do anything. Alone, I have no power. Alone, I'm just one voice. I really can't do anything. But with you, when we build power together, when we build relationship together, then we can get something done, right? So humility and chutzpah keep me going, and I would assume many of you as well. So Carolyn invited me to speak, and she also gave me a hint. She says, you don't have to get all prepared. You don't have to all that. You just show up and talk for us, Gary, and we'll figure it out. But I did. I like to take notes, and over this last couple of weeks, I've been just making some notes. And I have a couple of things that I thought I just want to have them at my access. So next thing, I'd like to share a poem with you. I am a yoga teacher, a yoga therapist. I don't see anybody. There's probably people in the room who have done movement work with me. Yes. But it's, in my life today, people know me from the city council, or they say, oh, you were my yoga teacher at St. Scholastica, or you were my yoga teacher at Two Harbors, or you were my yoga teacher at Fond du Lac. So there's hundreds and hundreds of people that I've had the honor and the gift of being in the studio with over the years. And this poem by Donna Markova is one that I have brought with me to many, many, many places. So I get emotional every time I read it. I'll get emotional today. I invite you to, if you want to, you're welcome to close your eyes and just breathe this in with me. Donna Markova. I will not die an unlived life. I will not die an unlived life. I will not live in fear of falling or catching fire. I choose to inhabit my days, to allow my living to open me, to make me less afraid, more accessible, to loosen my heart until it becomes a wing, a torch, a promise. I choose to risk my significance. I choose to risk my significance, to live so that which came to me as seed goes to the next as blossom, and that which came to me as blossom goes on as fruit. I will not die an unlived life. Isn't that something? It is. And, I share this poem today with a sort of a different understanding of it than I did certainly when I was first introduced to it 15 years ago or so. A couple of years ago, I had sort of what I describe as my first health incident in my life. If you don't count addiction, if you don't count trauma, but I had this, I turned 62 and the stuff started to hit the fan. And I have a different awareness and different understanding of who I am in this body today. And one thing that I want to say is that that I'm trying to live into today is that death is not the enemy. I am going to drop this body one day. Gary and I joke, he's 9 years older than me. And we joke that when he's 102 and I'm 93, I'm going to push him in his wheelchair. And we're going to go for a walk and we're just going to roll over into the ditch together. And wouldn't that be a nice way to go? Just go off into the ditch and let it be done, And I want to say that, death is not the enemy. Carolyn spoke of channeling, and I know that this congregation has a long history, and I don't have a lot of grounding in that language or in that community, but yet it's just like, I have this sense that our souls will go on and that they leave. I've had the honor of being with a couple of people, my mother and my uncle in particular, when they took their last breaths, and I got to accompany them over their last few days. My mother really last couple of years. But to be there in that sacred place of witnessing that letting go and just seeing how the body changes, the energy changes, the room changes, When a part of my reflection and preparation for being here was, and this was just yesterday, we were driving home we were in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin for the last couple of days, hanging out with some grandkids. And Gary and I, we have 3 kids and they live in 3 different places and they're all about 6 to 7 hours drive from here. So whenever we go see them, it's pretty intentional, right? And it's a good thing Gary and I get along because 6 hours in a car, but we'll sometimes listen to podcasts, sometimes sit in silence. Yesterday, I had my notebook and I just started doing some writing. It's interesting that I'm writing with this hand because I actually write with this one, but that's a story too. But I said, I'm just going to do like a little review. So I said, I was asked for a theme for this talk. And I said, well, all right, what's the theme going to be? Light and dark, life on life's terms. We are always living in this paradox. Something terrible, tragic happens, and I can go back through each decade of my life and say something really tough that happened. But I'm going to focus today a little bit here, just in the last couple of decades. In 2001, I was living in New York City. I'd been in exile, in self-imposed exile for about over 20 years at that point. I grew up in Floodwood. I was a gay kid in Floodwood in the 70s. Talk about tragic. And I say that and laugh because I love my community and I love the gift of being able to have a home that I can call in a small town. And but I was in New York City on 9/11/2001, and I was working right next to the Empire State Building and next to the biggest post office in New York City. And the towers went down, and then within a couple of days, anthrax was going through the mail, and I was a UPS driver, and my life just flipped over. And I knew then that already that there were some people, when those towers came down, they said, you know what, they're not going to be afraid. They're going to move to New York City and they're going to help us rebuild. For me, it was a point where I knew that it was time for me to go, or at least to start planning. And so I did. I started planning my exit from New York City. I started studying yoga, a teacher training, after having done yoga for many years already at that point. But I started studying in depth really for the first time. And that was a transformation for me. The place where I took my classes were in the zone that was a no travel zone, because they were only about a mile from ground zero. So you couldn't take the bus there, you couldn't take the subway there, you had to walk there. And I did that one weekend a month for that whole year after 9/11. And it prepared me to come back home to Minnesota, to come here and to start building a new home. You know, I hadn't been here for 22 years. I had never lived in Minnesota as an openly gay man. You know, I had never lived around my family on a day-to-day basis, you know, my birth family. And it was an amazing thing to be able to make that decision consciously and come back. So the darkness of 9/11 led to this new life. You know? I want to refer to a note here. Through those early 2000 years here in Minnesota, I was able to buy my first home and I started teaching yoga. And I did it as an independent contractor, as I mentioned before, Fond du Lac, Two Harbors, the College of St. Scholastica, community ed programs in Cloquet and ESCO. And I showed up for that to the best of my ability. I continued to study, I continued to practice, and I showed up, I can't tell you, over and over and over again with this imposter syndrome thing going on. I would drive up to Two Harbors. It was the longest drive for me to get there for that particular class once a week. And I did it for like 8 years. You know, it'd take a couple of months off in the summer, but they kept having me come back and the people kept showing up. But I would be driving up there saying, what the hell am I going to do today? I have nothing. You know, who am I? Who am I to show up here? And yet I would show up. Humility and chutzpah. I would show up and the students would show up and we would have this transformative experience together in the floor of the high school, out in the hallway. You know, there's sort of this open meeting space. That's where we were, you know. It wasn't some sacred temple like this, you know. It was the hallway of the high school. And that was a gift. There was a gift that I was called to do that. And I needed to make a living. I needed to do something. And so I just kept doing that. And then we came to the 2010s. And we talked about, I'll talk about this political thing a little bit. I had, despite all those years of teaching yoga, I still felt like I was really, if you really knew me, you know, you'd know that I'm just, ugh. You know, yeah, I know, isn't that silly? But when this stuff started coming up around marriage for same-sex couples, as I said, I knew that I could do something. I knew that I had something to offer. And what I did, and a part of the power base that I had, power with, right? Not power over. The power base that I had was with communities of faith. I'd been a member of Peace Church for a long time, I still am, but I had connections at the synagogue and with this church and with the Copper Top Church and St. Paul's Episcopal and the UU Church. And I reached out and said, we need to do something. We need to start organizing because we don't want to be the 31st state to ban same-sex marriage in our Constitution. And, you know, and it just happened. You know, hundreds in Duluth, we had an office at Gloria Dei Church. So many of you were there at one point or another during that year and a half or so we were there. We had a Glory, an office for very cheap rent at Glory Day. And then what Glory Day would, they charge us, like $75 a month or something. And then they'd bring hundreds of dollars worth of food to us to keep us fed, and then they'd bring volunteers. And in that office over a year's time, we had 750 different volunteers show up. And there were, out of that 750 that showed up at least one time, there was probably 500 who showed up 2 times, and 250 who showed up 10 times, and 150 who showed up 20 or 30 or 40 times. I mean, over and over and over again. And we told our stories. That's the success in that campaign, was that we asked people to tell their stories about love and about marriage. What does marriage mean to you? Do you know same-sex people? Do you think that they might like to be married just like you? And who could say no? And so that challenge, that darkness of those politicians, those politicians at that time in St. Paul saying, we're going to do this, we're going to ban this. That darkness led to the light and Minnesota voting no. And now the Supreme Court affirmed same-sex marriage, and the president just signed legislation. So it's quite the transformation. Yeah, big breath. One of the gifts that campaign work gave me is that that imposter syndrome stuff, which still shows up from time to time, but it's a normal part of being human, right? But I don't let it stop me anymore. I know, and you remind me when we see me at Costco and you say, hi, Gary, it's so good to see you. That's my day job, is at Costco. The yoga student comes by and says, you taught me yoga. This just happened last week. This young woman with a 5-year-old child, you were my yoga teacher at the Call of St. Scholastica. And now here I am with my son, and I want him to say hello to you, Or people come by and, I worked with you on the Vote No campaign, and wasn't that amazing? And thank you for your leadership. We change the world when we dare to show up with humility and chutzpah in equal measure. I will not die an unlived life. Gary and I are now in the process of planning our retirement. What a gift that is. And I've been telling this story lately because we've been doing practical stuff. We just updated both of our wills. We updated our healthcare directives. We met with our finance guy. But I can so clearly remember when I was that scared kid back in Floodwood. I was going to be graduating from high school, and I was not a stupid kid, but I really didn't have a plan for what I could study at college. Something, I wanted to sing, but I didn't know that if I could, I wanted to use my voice somehow. In my gut, then I knew I needed to be a minister. But I was a Catholic kid. We don't have ministers in the Catholic Church. But I always knew that was, if you really asked me to clear everything else away, that I was to be a minister. But I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know how to get there. But so what that led me to was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I just didn't know. How am I going to build a life? But I can tell you today, with tremendous, tremendous gratitude, that I can look back through each decade of my life and see the darkness and the light, and see the path that was revealed to me one step at a time. And community was there to guide me, to support me, to push me, and to pull me. And I think this is still happening, and Gary and I are planning our retirement, and retirement is sort of a joke. It's a strange word, right? And what we're going to retire to something and to more, maybe we'll have, Gary's been coming here for years and maybe I'll get invited back again sometime. We also have our labyrinth work that we do together and our labyrinth workshop. And our hope is to take that workshop on the road, and to share that and to continue to share who we are, perhaps at a slower pace and maybe with pauses in between to go watch the grandkids play soccer or whatever they're doing, or make music or juggle with fire. And, we have some crazy grandkids, and what a gift it is to be here and to be able to look back on life and to see, I have not lived an unlived life. And I would venture to say that that is true for every one of us here in this room today and everyone who's home listening and watching on Zoom. So if I may, if you would indulge me, I'd like to share a last prayer. And this is from Parker Palmer. Another prayer. I first heard this prayer up at the Coppertop Church back in the day. Elizabeth McCauley was the lead pastor there. And on Sundays, this was the version of the Lord's Prayer that they used each Sunday. And I don't know if they still do, but it's by Parker Palmer. And I love, love, love this prayer. Heavenly Father, Heavenly Mother, holy and blessed is your true name. We pray for your reign of peace to come. We pray that your good will be done. Let heaven and earth become one. Give us this day the bread we need. Give it to those who have none. Let forgiveness flow like a river between us, from each one to each one. Lead us to holy innocence beyond the evil of our days. Come swiftly, Mother, Father, come. For yours is the power and the glory and the mercy. Forever your name is, all in one. Thank you.
Love that. I'm short. Which one is it? This one? Oh, there we go. There we go. That's a little better. I'm short. Okay. All right. So at this point, can we have Jasmine, looks like you're ready to bring forward the basket for us. And let's do our little offering thing at this point. If you could play a little music for us there, Carol, just something light. Oh, yes. Divine love through me and us blesses and multiplies all that we give, all that we have, all that we receive, and all that we share. Thank you so very much. All right. Yeah, let's sing one more song. I know we're running low on time, but hey, we're flexible.
I am love. I mean, is this perfect for one? 178. Song. You guys know.
Ready? All right, let's say our church affirmation, which is on the white card in the pew in front of you. All righty, are we all set? We totally accept the belief that God is in charge of the affairs and direction of Lake Superior Interfaith Community Church. We know that as our thoughts of trust and joyful anticipation join in harmony with the thoughts of all members of this fellowship, we attract the right ministerial leadership to our spiritual community, and we are grateful. And one more thing, joyful teamwork is our way. Joyful teamwork is our way. Listening kindly is our path. Listening kindly is our path. We are in renewal together. We are in renewal together. Woo! All right, let's form our circle. Here we go.
Are we blessed?
Are we blessed?
We are blessed. Are we loved?
We are loved.
Are we grateful?
We are grateful.
Are we community?
We are community.
Ah.